What's up guys, and welcome back to Pop Beat Breakdowns. The beat I have in front of me for this video is a Latin pop or summer dance beat that I have made all from one sample as the inspiration source. So if you want to know more about how to make a Latin pop beat, make sure you watch this video till the end and get your comments in below if you've got any questions as you are watching along to this video. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to this channel as well. And if you're an artist and you like this beat, click the link in the description and you can actually download this beat to write over. Now, with all the mandatories out of the way, let's break down this Latin pop beat. Firstly, let's just give it a listen to see what it is we are breaking down today. As you can see, the main premise that this is built around is actually saxophone. Now, this is actually built around a sample today that we got from Splice, but this is how all ideas for productions originate around, always trying to find that first initial idea to build around. And today, this is the sample that I found on Splice, chopped it up a little bit more just to make it sound how I wanted it, but let's just isolate this and have a listen to the saxophone. So as you can see, I chopped it up just to have this nice little intro to the chorus, which is actually the end of the sample. When it comes to mixing as well, I have added an EQ just to increase the brightness of the track. Some compression really helps it stick out in the mix a lot more. I'm a big fan of the Studio FET compressor in Logic. Even though this is stock, I genuinely always find myself going to this one. It's got this real nice saturation to it, which is why I use it. And then we have, some standard effects. We've got a stereo delay just to add a little bit of a flutter after the saxophone plays, and the ROM reverb. I never actually know how it's actually pronounced, with 18% of the wet on, and the decay side is 4.8 seconds. So that is basically the whole thing we're building this track around. Now, for the rest of this, I'm going to show you the order that I added everything so you can get the best understanding of how to build the track up. So firstly, we are at the drums, and there's quite a lot in the drums here to break down. Let's give them a listen. Now, as I'm always saying on this channel, there's nothing wrong with using samples. I use Splice to source a lot of drums because as someone who has to make multiple beats every single day, it's a big time saver. And I've actually just dropped a TikTok on why using samples as a producer is a good thing. All the top producers use samples as well, by the way. So don't be ashamed to use samples. And I've used a couple of them. Let's first have a listen to all the samples that I have taken in. Now, all of these samples, I like to have a really good stereo spread on my drums. So there is a sample delay of some sort on every single one of these drum samples to spread them out to the sides of the mix, so that saxophone can really cut through. So the first sample here is a shaker. And we have this hi-hat. Obviously, we have a cymbal crash as well. And then we just have some white noise, which in this one I've reversed. Now, you might wonder what that little sort of like throb is. That's actually because all of this effects section here, the white noise, is not only chorus to be outside the mix, but it's also side chained to the kick. So every time the kick plays, as you can see, the compressor triggers, creating this throbbing sound. Very simple, but super effective production, especially with dance tracks as well. It really helps to do stuff like that. Then I'm using the Session Player by Logic Pro X. It's one of my favorite things that they brought out recently. And I used just Latin percussion on there. I adjusted a few parameters to get it to sound how I wanted it to, but this is how it sounded. Just something nice to add to the background. And then lastly, I'm using the Analog Architecture drum kit in Logic. So if you're a Logic user, you can use these exact drums. And for channel EQ, again, there's nothing really going on here at all, and it's just a kick and snare with a little hi-hat as well. Sorry, I forgot that as well. As you can hear, it's super simple, nice and bouncy, 4 on the floor kick, and that's the drums. Now, the next thing to add with the drums is I'm going to ignore the saxophone for a second and just focus on the next thing, the rhythm section. So that is the bass. Now, the bass I've actually layered 2 together. We've got some deep 808 bass here, which is from Alchemy. This is just to add that low end. This is just playing the root note of the chords. But one of the big focuses is actually getting the bass sound right. That's very fundamental because this production in itself isn't going to have a huge amount of stuff going on. So let's have a listen to this. As you can hear, it's very stabby bass line, but I wanted to be like that because wanted to, to get it moving. You've got to sometimes think about the feel of a production. Now, the sounds that we're using today is both in Utopia. We've got the Utopia Ascend preset, and then for the second bass is the Utopia FM front. Now, one thing I always stress on this channel is don't be afraid to mix sounds together to get the desired sound, because both of these by themselves wasn't the bass sound I was looking for, but put them together, this is the exact bass sound I had in my head. And as you can hear again, it's very stabby. With the 808, just adds a nice little low-end rumble, adding a little bit more substance to the low end of the production. So when you put all these three things together, by this point, when it comes to building production, we've already built something that feels quite substantial. Now, the next thing to do is the guitar. Now, I didn't actually record the guitar, it's not real, but I wanted to basically, because this is in the key of D minor, but the sample ends on an A. So what I've done is I bounced out chords from a guitar using Native Instruments Contact, the nylon guitar, and then I sampled an A chord and added that in. So we had this pattern, but you had to have a nylon string guitar in Latin pop. So as you can hear, the A plays, and it's all very seamless. So that's the very easiest way to get in the guitar. All the mixing was done in the plugin, but nothing fancy really to say. So when it comes to using Native Instruments, if you are someone who's watched the channel before, you'll know exactly what plugin I'm talking about. If not, go check out the Native Instruments. I believe it is the Session Guitarist Nylon Guitar. That is the thing I used. Now, the next thing I want to do, now this is really fun, because I don't normally build brass sections on this channel, but I had to for this type of track. Now, firstly, again, let's just listen to what we're dealing with. Now, the first thing that actually came into my head, even though it's ended up at brass 4, this is just because I was moving some stuff around, was this exact sound right here. Now, check this out. It's just so different, it sounds so cool and very fitting in with the genre. Now, what we're using today is the Session Horns by Native Instruments. Now, an alternative in Logic, if your Logic user is using the studio horns, you can find very similar sounds in here. But what I went for is the shake articulation. That's how we get that really cool sound. And then I put a reverb on, and that just adds a really cool sort of stamp for the chorus. And then the rest of it is just building up different brass sections. Now, I used the rhythm accumulation, or whatever it's called. You're still using the session brass. But I see here, these are just chords, but these are all just playing different rhythms, which I've mixed and matched together. And then when it comes to mixing, there's literally nothing really going on. I've just kept it really super simple. I kind of liked how dry the brass sounded when you listen to Latin pop. It's not actually that ambient. So I wanted to try and keep that feel as much as I could. And then we've also just got some more horns down the bottom here. So when you put it all together, sounds really cool. Now, genuinely, the track is nearly actually built, but there's just two more things that I added, because we wanted to add some sort of movement, some sort of arpeggiation in there as well to keep the production moving and add a good feel to it. So the first thing I added was the 80s bitrate synth. Now, this is in Logic, this is in the presets of the classic synths, and it's very simple. Again, we're just doing some sort of arpeggiated sort of pattern. Now, one thing I wanted to do, because a lot of the style of the chords is it's going up, and then for the A it drops down, I wanted to make sure this was just constantly ascending to add a little bit of variation in the production, just a little detail that I added in there. And then the last one I added was the different phases clav, which is a clav in Logic as well. A lot more arpeggiated this. And when you put it together, you get a finished production in the style of Latin pop. So there you go, guys. That is how I made a Latin pop track just from one sample that I found on Splice. I hope you found this video helpful. And as I said at this video, if you've got any comments, drop them below. I'd be happy to answer them. And make sure you subscribe for more content like this. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Keep making music, and I'll see you in the next video.